Let's move on to women's basketball really quickly. I want to talk about the legacy of Alexis Markowski, who will be having her final games this weekend at home. I expect Nebraska women's basketball to be in the NCAA tournament or the NIT or the other. I don't know which one, but one of the great careers in Nebraska history. And it's been fun to watch her play. Obviously, she's a hometown kid. She played at Lincoln Pius. Her dad played at Nebraska. At this point, her career far outpaces his. So, I think Alexis has earned the right to be at the top of that list in terms of accomplishments in the Markowski household. She has 1,767 points coming into tonight. They would need they need an extended run in the Big Ten tournament and a game or two in the NCAA tournament, I think, to get to 2,000. So I think that'll be just slightly out of reach. Um, but she has 1,767 points, 1,157 rebounds, more double doubles than any player in Nebraska history. What are your thoughts about Alexis Markowski? I know you don't cover women's basketball, but you probably watched her a time or two on TV.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like you said, she's the hometown kid who made good. She's been that constant for this program over the last few years. I mean, she was good as a freshman. I remember I'd go to some games and even then, like you could tell she was going to develop into something special and I think she has and my sense is she's kind of become the heart and soul of that team in a lot of ways. Kind of that that piece that everybody else looks at. I covered Nebraska women's basketball when Kelsey Griffin was there, and she was great, and I think Alexis would probably surpass her maybe in some of the numbers. I haven't looked, but just in terms of impact and role in the team. Like she's been doing it for a long time. This wasn't a 1 year thing. The program's been better because of her. They've been into the NCAA tournament. They've beaten Iowa when Caitlin Clark was there, and she had roles and all of that. So yeah, I mean, I think her name. Where do you put her all time in Nebraska women's basketball, Sam? You're a little more of a historian there. I mean, she top 10? Like where do you kind of put her in terms of impact players within that program?
I think statistically, she's absolutely top 10. By the way, Kelsey Griffin scored 2,033 career points. Some of that has to do with her final season at Nebraska and that being an incredible year for her. Yeah, I think Alexis, it's a fun conversation to have because to get into the top 10 of Nebraska's history is actually not easy. It's pretty challenging. Um, you obviously start the conversation with Mortice Ivy back in the 80s, and then you have Karen Jennings, and then you have Anna DeForge. Those are three. Kelsey Griffin and Jordan Hooper. Those are probably the first five that you think of. So you have that five right there, just sort of ready to go. Um, I think that's the five. Some people might quibble with what I just said, but that'd probably be your top five, and then you can put those in an order, whichever order you prefer to put them in. And then you have that next five, and I think Alexis is probably in that group. Now, again, statistically, she's probably ahead of a few of the players I just mentioned. Of course, outside of Mortiz, who I didn't watch in person. I mean, I saw a little bit of Karen Jennings, going down to games when I was younger, and then I covered Anna in college, and then I've seen kind of all the players since. I think Alexis is in that second group with just the things that she's accomplished. So yeah, she's on. If you're putting together an all-time Nebraska women's basketball team, she's either a starter or she's the first post off the bench. If you want Karen Jennings to be your starter, which I'd understand if you did, but that's a pretty great group. I mean, Ivy can be your point guard, and Anna DeForge and Jordan Hooper are your shooting guards, and then Kelsey's your four, and either Karen or Alexis is your center. Karen probably deserves that honor. I mean, she was the first to really be a great post. So I think so. You know, the legacy I think with Alexis, one of the things that I think that I'm going to remember about her, and I haven't covered the team as much in the last couple of years as I used to, but what I will say about her is that she's a real leader. She really cares about bringing her teammates up, and by that I don't just mean she leads by example. She leads vocally. She is a vocal leader, and there have been some really great players at Nebraska who I wouldn't necessarily have described as vocal leaders, but she is. She really cares about her teammates. She verbalizes her excitement and also her frustration. You can see her coaching players up on the floor. I think she has raised the overall level of belief in that room at times when they need to have it raised. And so I think she has a couple different times in her career just said, you know, we're drawing the line here. We're going out there and we're doing X, Y, and Z because we've had enough of this. And I think it's made the difference in some wins and losses for them. Certainly, you know, I don't think they're as talented as some of Nebraska's best teams, but they have won some big games and they won at Maryland last week. And you know, they lost to Illinois on Sunday, but I mean, the only reason they were in the game was because of her. Like she just sort of wills them. And so I've always appreciated her leadership ability and her will, just her will to play to will her teammates. That's actually pretty rare among young student athletes today. You see a lot of student athletes that are, well, you know, just want to get along with everybody. You do you, I'll do
You do
me.
you. Yep.
And Markowski, I feel like, has tried very hard to build a culture within that team. I think Jordy Ball on the softball team is the same way. You know, just is there's only certain things she's going to accept, and you have to meet the standard. So one of the things that I think Nebraska's really going to miss about Markowski is that like her double doubles are great, and she's a hell of a post, and she's tough and great defender and scores around the rim. I think they could miss the locker room piece.
Reminds me of the
If they
conversation
wanted a
we've
GA or something, you know.
It reminds me of the conversation we've had with Nebraska volleyball, where like Alexi Rodriguez or Amerit Beeson,
Well, yeah.
these who are great players in their own right, like Alexis, but like the leadership piece as well. What does that look like for these programs?
Yeah, well, I mean, as far as I don't know the volleyball team as well. I will say that I look at that volleyball team and I see some vocal leaders, including Harper Murray. If I mean, I think that can be her team if she wants it to be. On the women's basketball team, I would say they have other great leaders. Callan Hake is a vocal leader as well, and so they have other leaders. It's just that, you know, Alexis Markowski brings that as also the best player in the team. So sometimes like what's really valuable is when like your best player is that. And like, oh, so the player who can actually fill up the stat sheet is also the one demanding XYZ of me.
Yeah.
I could be wrong about this. So what I'm about to say, I could be wrong. My sense of Iowa over the last however many years was that Kate Martin was the leader. And Caitlin was the best player who carried the team, but that she really benefited from having Kate Martin side by side. It was like her best friend, but also big time leader in that program. And Caitlin obviously did a million different things and did them all really well. But I think Iowa benefited from having that sort of the twin power there, those two together. And but at Nebraska, I think, you know, they had obviously Alexis has been that leader. Um, so we'll see. And Allison Widener is a leader. It's just tough because she's had the injuries and all the rest. So going forward, they'll have to rely if Allison comes back. But Natalie Potts is going to have to take that as the player who I think can be the best player on the team next year when she comes back healthy. She'll have to take that role. But her career ends at home this weekend, unless they play in the WNIT or whatever they're calling. I think that's what they call it now, the WNIT. They could play again at home if they don't make the NCAA tournament. I do believe that Nebraska needs to win two of its last three, or go on a run of the Big Ten tournament. So if they beat Washington on Sunday and then they beat Northwestern the following Sunday, I'd put them in. if they lose to Washington, Oregon and Washington, and then they beat Northwestern, I think they need to win one in Indianapolis to make sure to seal the deal, so to speak.
Hmm.
So we'll see. But I think they're going to make the NCAA tournament, which would mean that Sunday's the final game for Alexis.